Welcome to a mile high edition of Section 247's The Goal Line Stand 32 for 32 NFL Preview Series. I am Michael Lipinski. I am joined, as always, by Brett Halpern. Brett, yesterday we previewed the Las Vegas Raiders. Today, division rival, the Denver Broncos, moving on through our journey across the AFC West. So let's get into this. First, for those of you who are watching this, you should go follow at GL Stan Show. Up in the corner there, links to that will be in the notes as well. One of those sites. Let's get into it, though. Let's get into the Broncos. Last year, 7-9, second place in the AFC West. A little bit of they were tied with the Raiders for record.
Yeah.
The big news, I think, coming out of Broncos camp in the league is they have a new offensive coordinator for the season. Pat Shurmur came over from the New York Giants. You say, I don't know that this is necessarily going to be a bad thing for Denver. He is a very good offensive coordinator.
Yeah, so I guess I should just I actually agree with you. And look, at the end of the day, there are certain coaches who just make better coordinators and just do not have success as head coaches. Pat Shurmur is one of those guys. Each time he has been a head coach, I'm not counting the 1 week where he had success for the 1 week he was the Eagles coach when he beat the Giants. So he's very good at beating the Giants, whether he is coaching against them or being their head coach. I still think people should have known when about 20 seconds into his introductory press conference, the lights went out. That's a sign. But yes, I agree with you. When he is tasked with only having to worry about the offense and also not having to make executive decisions, I think he's a good offensive coordinator. So I think it was a good pickup for Vic Fangio.
Let's get into it. Acquisitions. What sticks out to you here? There's two that really fly out to me, and that's AJ Bouye and Melvin Gordon. But you're here, you're the analyst. Let's talk about it.
I think this was actually a really nice haul in general. I agree with you. AJ Bouye was a good pickup. Will help replace Chris Harris, the long-term cornerback. Melvin Gordon, as you said, also picking him up from a division rival. That always, I think that always counts a little bit more. And then he's obviously, it now forms a really good 1-2 punch with Phillip Lindsay. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more. The other one, Jarrell Casey, is, a multi-time Pro Bowler. And really, I think probably the most talented defensive tackle the Broncos have had, on their team for several years now. Graham Glasgow is a solid interior lineman. They picked up a punter. That's all we're going to talk about with him. Nick Vannett, good. I think he's a very good blocking tight end, which is something they need. They have a lot of speed at the position, but they definitely needed to improve with blocking. So that's a good pickup. In terms of departures, obviously you're going to miss Chris Harris, but that I think was offset by the acquisition of A.J. Bouye. Connor McGovern, it was a good center who went over to the Jets. Derek Wolfe, a longtime Bronco on the D-line there. He went over to the Ravens. I think he's a very talented player. He reminds me a lot of Keith Hamilton from the Giants back towards the end of Keith Hamilton's career. Big run-stuffing kind of guy, long arms. So he'll be missed, but Jarrell Casey's an excellent player. So all in all, I think it was a good offseason for the Broncos.
Hold on. No love to the punter. So you gloss right over Sam Martin. Punters count too.
Yes.
And then Andy Janovich, fullback. You're just like, the fullback. Nobody cares. No one even uses it.
Well, no, look. Obviously my favorite fullback in the NFL is Michael Burton. Andy Janovich, good player. I think the best fullback in the league is probably Kyle Juszczyk. The other fullbacks that are in the league, to me, are essentially interchangeable. That might even include our boy Michael Burton. So that's why I guess, yes, I did gloss over him. And also apologies to Will Parks, the safety.
Let's talk about it. The Broncos are going to have 2 opt-outs
Yeah.
for COVID-19. One of them rather interesting.
Yeah, so as everyone can see there, Kyle Pico and then Jawan James. Jawan James, that is a big loss. So he originally was a first-round pick for the Dolphins. He was going to be the starting right tackle for the Broncos. And if there's an issue with the Broncos, it's who's blocking. Their offensive line is still – it's a work in progress. That's, to say it nicely. And so to not have Jawan James, that definitely hurts. It's something we talked about on our regular podcast. Check us out on all podcast platforms, and you can follow us on all social media at GL Stan Show. You can see there in the top right corner. Look, I'm not going to fault any of these players. They all have very valid reasons for opting out, but this definitely hurts the Broncos.
It does definitely hurt the Broncos. It was a piece of the puzzle they thought they were going to have.
Yeah.
Let's move on to their draft here. Broncos, I liked it early on. I really liked their early on draft, especially the wide receivers in round 1 and round 2. What's your take on this?
I think if my memory serves me correct, in our draft recap show, I said this was one of my favorite drafts. And looking at it again, I completely understand why.
Yeah, fast.
Yeah.
I mean, they got some speed in there. They got we discussed it when we were talking about the Raiders. Jerry Jeudy was the number 1 guy for Alabama.
Yeah. Yeah, and he is a tactician. He is a tremendous route runner. And that's something that I think you need. And then KJ Hamler's the burner, right? He is the slot guy, but he's also going to take the top off the defense to allow Jerry Jeudy and their current wide receiver, Cortland Sutton, who's an ascending star, to really wreak havoc on a lot of defenses. Michael Ojemudia from Iowa, very good cornerback. They lost Connor McGovern to the Jets. They picked up their next starting center with Lloyd Cushenberry at LSU. McTelvin again from Arkansas. I think it might take a year for him, but I really like him at D tackle. He's more of the run stuffing kind of guy. He can help replace Derek Wolfe. Albert Akwegbenem, I believe that's how you pronounce it. If not, I apologize to Albert. Is an incredibly fast tight end. Ran the fastest combine time for tight ends. When healthy, is a serious threat. I also really like Natan Moody from Fresno State, the guard. Very powerful. I even think he got good value in the 7th round with Tyree Cleveland, another wide receiver from Florida. Kind of more quick than long term or long range speed, but I think he's a guy who could come in and contribute. So for the 7th round, that's a lot of upside. But again, they both address needs and further built upon strengths, and that's a really good draft to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, that is the key to the draft.
Yeah.
John Elway and crew might have actually hit this head on, hit the home run here. It begs to be seen, but so far so good. If I'm a Broncos fan, I'm actually not going to be too disappointed on how that all worked out.
No.
Let's get to it. We have 4 burning questions, the 4 key questions for the Denver Broncos in 2020. And we kind of briefly touched on it here, but how talented are their skill positions? I like them a lot.
Yeah, I really like them a lot. And not only, the other thing is they're young. So quarterback, you got Drew Lock, who definitely, look, it's still a question mark, but when he came in the latter part of the season, the last several games, he played very well. And there's a lot of reason for Broncos fans to be excited about him. He showed a lot of skill. His accuracy might still be a slight issue, but I think it was a lot better than that was one of the worries of Drew Lock coming into the league. And I thought that it looked a lot better than the issues he had in Missouri. Running back, you have Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon. Tight end, you have Noah Fant, their first round pick last year, and Albert Akwegbenem. I mean, these guys literally, their average 40-yard dash time is like a 4.42. That's I think that's probably better than some wide receiver groups.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
look, we talked about this on the draft recap. It
Yeah.
was clear when John Elway and company were drafting what they were doing.
Yeah.
Weapons, weapons, weapons. And they
Yeah.
have given weapons to Locke. I mean, that's how you do it. You
Yeah.
have to give your quarterback weapons in order to have a chance at winning and compete with the Super Bowl champions who are also in your division, the Kansas City Chiefs, who we'll get to tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's clear to me that they're building this because you definitely hit the biggest issue there, which is how do you compete with the Kansas City Chiefs? And considering that they just signed Patrick Mahomes to a 10-year deal, he's going to be around for a long time. So how are you going to compete with them for the next decade? And the Broncos, I believe, are like, you know what? We're going to score a lot of points. And so, yeah, tight end is really solid. And again, young. Wide receiver, Cortland Sutton, young. I think this guy is going to – he's probably a top 15 wide receiver right now. By next year, could be a top 10 wide receiver.
Absolutely.
Then you're bringing in Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler. You also have Deshaun Hamilton. Look, Penn State guy, whatever. But, still talented. He was drafted the same round as Cortland Sutton. So I think you have – and the other nice thing is this is something that Daniel Jeremiah talks about in terms of – when you have a wide receiver core, which is, you kind of like to have it almost like he uses the term like build them like a basketball team. You have the center, the power forwards, the guards. And if you look at the wide receiver group for Denver, you have guys, Cortland Sutton, Deshaun Hamilton, much more like power forwards, possession guys a little bit, even though Cortland Sutton definitely stretches the field. Then you have speedsters like KJ Hamler. You have the in-between guy and Jerry Jeudy. I just really like the skill position guys. And as I said, they're young. I mean, there's not one guy that I mentioned there that's been in the league for more than 3 years. They're all on their rookie deals.
And I was just going to say, and the beautiful thing about that is you're not really paying them a lot. So you can get the best out of them now without really crushing your cap, which is going to change by all accounts in 2021. We'll get to that on the big show, the Goal Line Stand, every Friday at thegoallinestand.com and anywhere you find podcasts. You mentioned running backs, so we have to ask the question, was Melvin Gordon a necessary addition?
I don't think he was a necessary addition. So prior to his arrival, the running back room in Denver was Phillip Lindsay, who was, by the way, the guy was an undrafted free agent and made the Pro Bowl his rookie year.
And then you also fantasy football team.
Yeah, he helped me. I'm always like I linger my fantasy football teams. I'm always the guy who just sneaks into the playoffs and then gets destroyed. But he helped me do that.
Champion. I'm ready to retire. But
congratulations.
Well, it was all happenstance.
Yeah. So they also had Royce Freeman from Oregon. And I think he's a decent running back. I don't think Melvin Gordon was a necessary addition. Now, I will tell you, they didn't overpay for him, right? It was a very manageable, reasonable contract.
Agreed.
But in terms of allocation of resources, I would have, and particularly now given the Juwan James opt-out, I would have further bolstered the offensive line. Maybe picked up another swing tackle, something.
We always discuss it on when we're talking football that running backs are a dime a dozen now.
Yeah,
you can go get a guy and just slot him in for a year and he's going to be okay. I agree with you. If you're going to really invest any sizable dollars, it should be the line.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I think as a Bronco fan, am I happy that Melvin Gordon's there? Yep. And again, it was a reasonable contract. So you did not. Oh, you actually kind of got him on a bargain, I think.
I agree. And he probably has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, too.
Yeah.
Which is going to help, which always helps.
Can this guy rush for 1,000 yards? Absolutely. Can this guy be a Pro Bowler? Absolutely. So it's a little strange, right? We're saying, do you really want a Pro Bowler? But again, who's blocking for you, right? So that's a bit, and again, allocation of resources. So to me, I think I would have gone offensive line or maybe even defense.
Speaking of defense, let's get into defense. This is a great question. Over under 27.5 combined sacks for Miller and Chubb.
So my math serves me
In a
correct, that
full
would
season,
be well. No, of course, yeah. So, and we mentioned this. I think we mentioned this in our first preview. We're doing this analysis based upon the. I'm knocking on wood there. Assumption that everything at least we're going to have a normal season for the most part. And people are obviously healthy, and we obviously hope and pray for the health of everyone as relates to COVID. So if my math serves me correct, that means you need to have one guy 13 and a half, another guy at 14. No, you need both guys. That's a
14
tall.
each.
Yeah.
You need to get over 27. So
yeah. Yeah.
Woo! We got over 28.
So it's interesting because I think Von Miller didn't break 10 last year, and Bradley Chubb was hurt.
Number.
It's a big number. It's a big number. I'm actually bullish on them, and so I'm gonna go over. I'm gonna go over again, assuming full health for if both play 16 games. I think it could be done.
I got to take the under. If you're bringing out 28 sacks from those guys, you're doing something correct on defense. I mean, that's a dominant defense right there.
Well, Chubb is rookie year, I think, had 10 or 11. Von Miller, I think, came off a down year. I think he's good for at least 10 or 11, and then you're in the ballpark.
You're in the ballpark, but that's a big ballpark.
Yeah, it's a big ballpark.
But it is thin air in Denver, so maybe you can hit some home runs. That's for the baseball show, which we don't have. And we're not going to. Number 4, the defensive X factor for the Broncos is who?
Now you see, this answer is why I'm more confident about my previous answer, which is Jurrell Casey, the defensive tackle for the Tennessee Titans. To me, he provides an interior pass rush that hasn't been there since Malik Jackson of the Eagles now currently. So I think the arrival and emergence of Jurrell Casey only helps Bradley Chubb and Von Miller in their pass rushing efforts. So for that reason, that's why I think Chubb and Miller do well, and I think Jurrell Casey will. So that's why I thought it was a tremendous pickup. And obviously not an in-division rival with the Titans, but a team that obviously, based upon last year, did really well, made it to the AFC Championship game. And it's always good to weaken an in-conference opponent. So I really like that pickup, and I think that could be the difference. And that's something that they haven't had, because Malik Jackson, the year after they won the Super Bowl, went to Jacksonville. They had Derek Wolfe, who was a good run stuffer, but they never had that interior pass rush presence. So I think that's the X factor.
That's Brett. I'm Mike. If you're enjoying this, please subscribe to this here YouTube channel. Check us out on all social media. Give us a follow. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, @GLStanShow. This is the Denver Broncos edition of our 32 for 32 NFL preview series. Go back and check out the Raiders and the Chargers. Join us tomorrow as we preview the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, the Fighting Andy Reids. Until then, stay safe, and we will see you on down the road. This has been a Section 247 show presentation, and thank you for joining us.